Hello, welcome back to the Yellow Turbans Abridged. Last time we took out one of Lu Bu's major field armies in Anding, then we finished off Liu Jiang as a faction before going back to Anding to take out another of Lu Bu's major field armies, and with that we got peace with him. We're now going to focus instead on clearing up the situation around the capital where there are plenty of hostiles, and fighting another war in the south against Yu Minshang, and that's what we're focusing on right now. We've got a little battle at one of her cities. Only one officer's worth of troops on each side, so just a small one here. The enemy's troops are a bit better, so that gives them the advantage, but at least we're up on a hill. We're also showering them with arrows. The enemy weren't paying much attention to my peasants here, so I got a load of shots off for free at the start. The reason is they're actually going to shoot over my archers into my spears. This was kind of annoying, but kind of good. I wanted to lose the peasant archers because we won't need them later on. But then again, the spears have a 50% missile block charge, so a lot of those arrows don't do anything. Hard to say what the correct choice would have been for the AI there. Anyway, the enemy come up the hill a little bit, and once they're close, we charge down and hit them. My grand plan was to send the cav around the side to take out the archers, but the AI actually reacted to this pretty well. They had their cav on their right, but they switched it to the left at the last second, so I couldn't go after their archers, and you can see my spearmen, who were ready to go attack that enemy cavalry unit, are now just out in the open. Nice move then from the AI, although it does mean we can just do our battle plan the other way round. I'll have my spearmen attack the enemy archers, and we should still win there, just a bit more slowly. And the spears can still come through the big gaps in the enemy formation and hit the enemy cav anyway, so that will all be alright. We'll sort all that out. Once the enemy archers are running away, we'll start rear attacking the enemy's melee inf. Their melee inf is probably better than ours, so we're not going to win if we let the battle just plough on. So we'll try and beat them on morale by just fighting them from behind at the same time. My peasant archers, who are all out of ammunition, can now be put to very good use by just running towards the enemy's archers. They'll skirmish away and just generally not take part in the battle, or shoot the peasant archers when they get the chance, but overall that'll just negate any advantage they have for having better ranged units. And soon enough, as you can see here, the enemy do start to rout and will gradually clear things up one unit at a time. And we can even use the peasant archers again here, because as I mentioned previously, a rear attack's a rear attack in Total War logic, so even if it's a situation like this where our peasants attack the enemy and are just being mowed down by the enemy spear guards, the enemy consider themselves to be losing that fight just because we are surrounding them with something, so the effect on the enemy's morale should be the same. And sure enough, we do start to see routs, and that's going to be the end of this battle soon enough. However, I must admit now that I don't have the footage for what happened immediately after this battle. Long story short, it was just another battle, but I didn't record for some reason the results of this battle or how the next battle started. So here we are, somewhere else, and I'll try to explain. It's the Hanzhong Silk Trader, and we're fighting an army from Cao Cao, and we're just defending with the garrison here. You may recall Cao Cao had an army that bypassed our defences at the capital, and I was worried they would come and do something like attack one of our backline settlements, and here they are doing so, and I fought it manually so we can take advantage of the towers. In particular, the enemy's crossbowmen presumably aren't able to shoot fire arrows because they're not destroying our towers, so while they are killing a load of our men, the towers, the much more important element of our defence, will be intact. Now all we need to do, as we've seen before, is make the melees take place underneath our towers and try to delay as long as possible. Make the enemy just stand there gradually getting killed. A couple of guys will die each second to the towers, and if the fight can last a couple of minutes, you can pretty much kill them all. At the same time, we do have 2 units of cav who might as well go out to try and take out enemy ranged units. This unit over here doesn't have much success because the enemy's cav just countered. But fine, the enemy are now wasting their arrows shooting our cav, and they don't matter for our strategy. We just need our regular infantry to stand in the gateways here. And things are starting to work already. We're absolutely showering the enemy with arrows and tower bolts, and enemy units are starting to rout. Our archers in this fight are the upgraded version of the Yellow Turban archers. They're called something like People of the Forest. And they're like Yellow Turban archers, but slightly more powerful, and they have good melee stats. And that's just what we need in a fight like this, because we need the melee under the tower to go on for as long as possible. And here we are some time later, when it's gone on for a while and things are just working. One of the attacks has been completely defeated and the other one is gradually being ground down. The enemy just can't get past us. The combined efforts of our surviving melee inf and the archers now in melee has kept the enemy under the tower for ages, and they're all dying. Their officer there routs, and you can see here in particular the effect of towers on heavy cav. They just get mown down because, as I think I mentioned at some point, I don't believe you can have armor saves against the tower's attacks, although you can have missile evasion, as we saw with Lu Bu. Somehow you can survive being hit by the towers, but usually things don't. So we ended up winning that battle, and Cao Cao's force has been royally screwed over. We captured their officer here, and I would let him go, but he's got these nice clothes, and by the rules of the game you can only take someone's clothes if you also kill them, unfortunately for him, so sorry, he has to go. Also going to give his men back to take the money, because we'll have plenty of time to finish them off in a second. We're actually, by the way, one turn after the battle before that one, so the footage I lost did miss one turn of my campaign action, and one thing I did during that turn was get peace with Yuan Shu, so that's why he was running away from us just then. Another thing I did, by the way, was capture the city, the garrison of which we were killing in the first battle of this episode. So there they are on the bottom right. Gone, we've captured their territory. However, the army that was previously there has captured some of our territory, so that's what I'm sorting out now with my trash stack. I stopped to unite all of my forces first though, since the enemy do have quite a few men over there. Up north, Gong Du will finish off the survivors of Cao Cao's army now that he has arrived down near the capital. And with Yuan Shu falling back, we don't really need Gong Du here anymore as it happens. However, you may also remember that last time Liu Bei declared war on us, so that's going to be what Gong Du focuses on next. I'm going to march him round to the west and down towards that bit of Bashi that we don't have, with the general goal of going into the Chengdu region where Liu Bei's main army is currently stationed, where I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of chaos. We also had the force that was defending Chang'an, and they can move to the east because there's another random bit of Liu Bei territory, the Luoyang trade port, so I thought we might as well set up to take that, although we'll do it next turn since it's winter at the moment. Now during the enemy turn, we see the first bit of real action from Liu Bei. He and his two brothers attack the Chengdu farmlands, and they go right down. Not even going to bother contesting that, no towers or anything. So there we have it, there's the problem. We're going to have to try and root him out of our territory. We're also going to fight another battle right now, because Yu Minshang came out of the territory she took from us to attack our encamped trash stack. So we don't have our full complement of trash, but we do have an encampment. That means we'll have towers on the map. It's going to be just like that silk trader. That said, we're also defending a night battle. For the first time, the enemy has used night battle on us, so all of our troops will be demoralized. And the enemy army is absolutely packed with archers. That makes it very suitable for attacking a fort. Not all of these archers have fire arrows, however. It was mentioned in the comments somewhere that the ability to use fire arrows is tied to the level of the officer that the troops are being led by. So some of them are setting fire to the towers and some of them aren't. I think I'd prefer it if it was tied to the unit's level in records mode, because the general's level is quite an abstract thing. Plus, if you don't take certain upgrades, you still can't use fire arrows and stuff. It's kind of a complicated situation, so you never know whether to expect fire arrows. So yes, maybe if it was tied to supplies or unit level, it might be a bit more predictable. All the archers who don't have fire arrows are still making themselves very useful because they're just annihilating us at range. We don't have that many men inside and our men aren't very good. So the arrows are just mowing down our units before the enemy arrive. And yes, that's what you should do attacking a fort, so well done to the enemy. They are on the ball now, but it is costing us quite a few men. After a while, luckily enough, they do oblige. They don't bother using up all of their ammo, and they do engage underneath the tower as we wished, and now it's just a case of hoping the men we have left will be enough to hold. I've sent 2 units outside the fort over there to go around and try to attack the enemy archers, and I'm setting up with this officer to do something similar to the other group, but they haven't made their move yet, so I'm having to hold off until they split up. I've got another officer inside, our leader, Shu He in fact, and he's in trouble. He's getting absolutely annihilated by the enemy archers, And I didn't notice, indeed look at this move, I'm taking him closer to the front line to provide more of a morale buff, not realising he's getting killed. And you can see the reason from this camera perspective. The projectile trails are invisible on snow maps, so you actually can't see where archers are firing while you're playing the game. That's why he's being absolutely annihilated, but you have to actually zoom in to ground level to be able to see, which is not the perspective from which I tend to play things. I did eventually realise just then at the end and run him away. At the same time, the enemy archers will finally be neutralised as my cav arrive with a very slow charge there. Fighting on a winter map gives you a speed debuff, which I presume also affects your charge bonus. But in a straight melee we can beat those enemy archers, so we'll just lock them down and fight, and continue to pray that the enemy can't get through our frontline blockade here. They only have to push forward a little bit to capture the towers. I should defend further forwards really, but right now the towers are working their magic. Things are going to be more difficult over here at the other approach because the towers are gone. This time we just have to rely on melee skill, and the enemy do have the numbers there to gradually grind us down, so that's a little bit dodgy for us. At least our cav under Phelan will now make their attack on the enemy archers, who, just like the other group, were very nice and didn't use up all of their arrows before the infantry attacked. So we are going to be able to take out some of the enemy's combat potential here once we gradually get those charges off and start working our way through those archers. There is an enemy officer there as well, but it's a strategist type who is very bad in melee. And now things work out. Basically that's the summation of this battle. The group that was attacking the intact towers did get killed by them, and it all went as I had hoped, so the towers remain OP. And as for the other group, I rear attacked them with Phelan's cav, and as someone recently informed me in the comments, in this game there isn't actually any bonus for fighting cavalry with spearmen, unless they're standing still and you attack them from the front, where you get the charge reflection thing I mentioned once. So basically we can be a lot more brazen with cav than in previous games, so I need to be less cautious. For example, in this case, a cav attack routed like 5 units at once and suddenly brought the battle to an end. So all good stuff. We eked out a close victory, thanks to our fort, no doubt. The enemy army isn't totally destroyed. They've got plenty of units still alive because they routed successfully, but we're still alive too, and our reinforcements are on the way. Plus we can do a recruit choice here to get a few of our men back. The camera goes a bit wild, showing us something over there, and then the enemy forces have fallen back to the settlement. It's not a case where we can just auto-resolve the remnants. In fact, the enemy still have an advantage as I press them here, so I am going to have to just leave a siege there and wait for Fan Yao and the reinforcements to catch up before we finish off Yu Minshang's faction. Now that it's spring, we can also go ahead with that attack on the Luoyang trade port. I was expecting here to just storm in and auto-resolve this place, but unfortunately they've got a load of men and they've got towers here, which perhaps influences the Pyrrhic victory result prediction from the balance bar, so not worth an auto-resolve. I was about to do it manually, however this was a case where I instead left the siege going so I could fiddle about with some things, make a full save, and then come back to do that battle another time. But as it happens, in this case, that other time was quite a long time in the future, and I completely forgot about that, so those guys will now just be doing the siege until I eventually remember them again. In the meantime, Fan Yao's caught up and is now reinforcing our siege of the Yu Minshang holdouts. However, I was annoyed to see that combining our armies together for some reason deletes all of our supplies. Not quite sure what's up with that. For some reason our men decided to burn all of the food in order to welcome Fan Yao into the camp. At least in this particular case, because we can attack and take some territory right now, we'll soon be able to get some more supplies. And indeed, the arrival of the reinforcements makes this auto-resolvable. In we go then, we'll take the capture, get our lands back, and that's the end of that faction. However, it's not going to be the end of the war, of course, because now we just have to fight Liu Bei instead, an even more difficult opponent, so that will be our next project in the south. You may also note I've hired 2 new generals in this area. I've put some trash in these cities at Chengdu and Baxi, so that if they are attacked, we'll have a pretty good chance of defending them and potentially taking Liu Bei down. That's the thought behind that investment. Now, in the next turn, a cutscene plays, a strange cutscene that feels like it's supposed to be at the beginning of the game. Apparently, the Emperor is vulnerable and people are rising up to take control. Someone should tell them that he's dead, presumably. I don't know what we did with the Emperor. We had him at one point, we chucked him out, and I guess that was just the end of that. No one looked into it any further. So yes, we've leveled up in Imperium, and that's why that cutscene randomly played. This unlocks various things like these ranks, similar to the ones you had in Attila, only this time they don't expire after a certain number of turns, so you don't have to keep coming back to reassign them, which I quite like as someone who enjoys ignoring all of the background stuff. It's just another one of these things where you pick a set of passive buffs and it changes based on who you assign to each particular position, so you can get a quite specific setup going if you have the options available. And once more, that's the sort of thing I won't bother talking about because it generally doesn't matter how you set it up. They're all equally okay in the broad scheme of things. Gong has finally arrived on the battlefront with Liu Bei after spending many turns walking from one side of Hanzhong to the other thanks to the mountains. And now we're going to announce his arrival by attacking the Bashi toolmaker and stealing this from Liu Bei, which will complete the commandery of Bashi for us at last. Going to make this a night attack, and I'm turning it off and on here to see if it changes what the result of the battle will be in the prediction. Sometimes you get lower casualties predicted if you click night attack, sometimes you don't. Not quite sure what the case is, maybe just because they were already low it can't go to minimal or something, you know what I mean? So there we go, we've taken the place. And then after that, while I was fiddling around with the buildings, I noticed out the corner of my eye this siege of the Luoyang trade port, and I was like, oh yeah, that whole thing. So I came over here, and now it's been a few turns since it started. We don't need to fight the battle, the enemy had been attritioned down, and we just ought to resolve as I originally wanted actually. So I guess that went okay in the end. The fact that there are no enemies around here means that I wasn't punished for just forgetting about the whole thing for a few turns. And yes, this stack will now be made available to use in our war with Liu Bei. We can go to the south and attack his territories there. One other thing I've unlocked as a result of getting the next Imperium level, I think it's actually called Enlightenment, I keep calling it Imperium, hopefully you know what I mean, is the ability to do trade deals. I can only do one, and only one person wants to trade with me, so Kong Rong is now going to be my friend. Not sure why he has territory next to me, since he is based over on the eastern coast of China, but I guess he sent an expedition over and has just been sitting there for a while. Now in the next turn, Gong is able to move down towards the city of Bashi, where, as we can see, there's actually an enemy army standing there. One of Liu Bei's commanders has brought a stack over, so it looks like we might have some action very soon. That said, Liu Bei comes to us with a peace treaty in this same turn, so he's being aggressive and peaceable at the same time. He's even offering us money, not very much, but it's a nice gesture. Now, I was really tempted to accept this offer because it would make our campaign much easier. We could pick our next target for once and just do what we want if we weren't at war with Liu Bei. However, look at our territory. The little bit of Chengdu that Liu Bei controls makes our territory look really weird, so I really wanted to get the rest of Chengdu Commandery back. There was a chance I could do that with the peace deal, because I've now unlocked the ability to include territory trading in peace deals, or in negotiations as a whole, one of the old Total War features that has made a welcome return for Three Kingdoms. However, he's not at all interested in that. I reject the deal, and now he's coming at us from all directions. 3 armies are on the move. Maybe I should have taken that peace deal after all. Seems he was just giving us the chance to peace out before he annihilates us because he's such a nice guy. At least I now have a stack moving into his territories in the east. Our defensive situation is going to be bad though. Huang Zhong, one of the legendary commanders of the era, is going to be able to easily take down our stuff in the south by the looks of things. We can't get men over there in time to stop him. And up with Gong Du, it appears they're trying an ambush strategy because one of the armies has disappeared mysteriously, so it's ambushing somewhere around the area between the city and the forest in the east. Knowing that, I just moved Gong Du to the west so that I probably wasn't going to trigger the ambush, and from there I can actually attack Liu Bei right now, and I am going to do that rather than trying to get him to attack the walls or something, because this is still a pretty good battle for us In that, Liu Bei was in forced march stance. All of his men will be tired / very tired or something from the beginning and get a attack debuff as a result. Plus we can pick one other bonus. We can either make it a night attack and have the enemy's morale be debuffed, or we can do a day attack and have our reinforcements from the city allow us to have more men than Liu Bei. Had to choose, and in this case I'm going to go for night attack because I think the enemy being debuffed in terms of morale is a much bigger advantage than having more troops, because once they're routing we can wipe the enemy out even with a small number of troops on our side. That's the plan. So looks like the decisive battle of the war is going to happen right now, and by right now I mean at the start of the next part.